balita, komentaryo, kasayuran o kalingawan. Ang mas kipakusgan nga inyong Radyo Ronda.
Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Tomorrow as COVID-19 cases decline in the region and Superman comes out in the latest DC comic series. Severe tropical storm Maring battered northern Luzon, causing floods in several provinces. In La Trinidad, Benguet, chest-deep floodwaters almost submerged a vehicle. In Barangay Betag, strawberry farms were also not spared from Maring's wrath. In Gonzaga, Cagayan, the spillway overflowed, prompting the forced evacuation of residents along waterways. 14 towns in the province were flooded, while some areas, including those in Apayao, experienced power shortages. Meanwhile, strong winds toppled trees along a highway in La Union. Disaster officials continue to verify reports that at least 9 people from Benguet, Cagayan, and Palawan died in the aftermath of Maring. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council told CNN Philippines 2 others were injured in Cagayan, while 11 others are missing. Rescue operations continue.
Medyo nakakaranas pa rin po ng mga pag-uulan, although medyo umiigi na daw po dahil paalis na itong si Maring. Some of our rescuers po are having difficulties, lalo na dun sa area sa Narvacan. Medyo mabilis yung daloy ng tubig, pero andun na sila sa site. Best effort po ang ginagawang rescue operations doon. Sinisigurado lang natin na hindi madidisgrasya pati yung rescuers natin.
Malacanang says government agencies are monitoring the impact of Maring to provide proper assistance to those affected by the calamity. Aside from local governments, the Office of the Vice President has also deployed its own teams. A short is taking effect tomorrow in Metro Manila. Shorter curfew hours taking effect tomorrow in Metro Manila as COVID-19 cases continue to go down. Metro Manila Council Chair and Parañaque City Mayor Edwin Olivares says instead of 10 p.m., curfew begins at 12 midnight and ends at 4 a.m. daily. Olivares explains this will also help in the economic recovery as more business establishments are allowed to operate. The Metro Manila Development Authority is also hoping for the easing of the alert level status in the region with the upcoming Christmas season. Based on Octa Research Group numbers, MMDA Chair Benher Abalo says the COVID-19 reproduction rate is now down to 0.61 on October 8, last Friday, from 1.25 on September 17.
Everything is going down, even the hospital. That is why the mayors really are praying that the alert level would also go down. No? In fact, right now, ginagalawan na namin yung economy. No? Talagang full support kami rito.
The Health Department reports 8,615 new COVID-19 infections today, with 236 more deaths and over 25,000 new recoveries. This brings the total number of cases to 2,683,372, of which over 82,000 are active cases. 3 laboratories failed to submit their data on time. The World Health Organization backs giving a 3rd dose of the COVID-19 vaccine to select groups. It says another shot of Sinovac and Sinopharm vaccines should be offered to persons aged 60 and above, as well as those who are immunocompromised. The agency adds evidence shows a need for a 3rd dose for those who had 2 shots of inactivated vaccines produced by Chinese manufacturers. In September, the WHO called for a moratorium on the distribution of booster shots. The Philippines' biggest vaccine stock is Sinovac with over 40 million doses. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez had announced supplies are ready for the 3rd shot of over 1 million medical frontliners. Now, business owners are concerned about whether they can comply with the mandatory 13th month pay to their workers. Tristan Nadalo spoke with both employers and employees in this report.
Business groups are calling for easing of restrictions and downgrading of Metro Manila's alert level to help businesses recover from the impact of stringent lockdowns. Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion says some business owners are worried of not being able to fulfill the mandatory 30-month benefit of employees due to limited operations and income. Concepcion adds that 30% operating capacity is not enough to cover all business-related expenses. Restaurant groups tell CNN Philippines they're hoping to be allowed to operate to up to 50% beyond October 15 and from 80 to 100% capacity before the Christmas season.
As possible kasi we're already approaching, we're already in the fourth quarter, and very soon a lot of the discussion now is about 13-month pay, for example. How are we going to be able to pay for that? Just let us open, give us more capacity, and we'll try to manage as best we can, right?
Some employees hope that a 13th-month pay won't be delayed, although they understand the impact of the pandemic and the series of lockdowns.
Huwag naman, kailangan sana gamot, pagkain, mabayarin, papasko pa.
Aantayin na lang ganun kasi wala din tayong magagawa gawa ng pandemic talaga Pero mas maganda kung maibigay nila para ngayong darating na Pasko, kung magbabakasyon, edi may panggastos.
The Labor Department has yet to issue an advisory on the 13th-month benefit and the guidelines for those who can't afford to give it. Meantime, the Trade Department is also offering its CARES program for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises to provide additional funding for businesses who cannot pay the 13th-month benefit of their employees. The said initiative has 6 billion funds for struggling businesses. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines.
The trade industry says it will provide loans to distressed micro, small, and medium enterprises through its financing arm, the SB Corporation. President Duterte taking the blame for the vaccine shortage early this year. In his weekly talk to the nation, Mr. Duterte reasoned out rich countries' hoarded doses and that the Philippines has no vaccine manufacturing firm, making it difficult to secure the shots. Here's the president in his own words.
At kung meron man na nagkasala dyan, aminin ko na lang. Kasi wala ma rin akong magawa. Gusto kong bumili, wala naman akong mabilihan. At kung makipag-contest ako doon sa mga mayaman, sa bilihan ng bakuna, talagang huli ako. So yan dapat ninyong maintindihan. Ngayon, kung kasalanan man yan, walang iba dyan kung hindi ako na. Aaminin ko na yan.
The government says vaccine supply is no longer a problem. The country has received over 85 million doses. Coming up on Newsnight, we'll give you updates on the continuing rains despite severe tropical storm Maring's departure. And in the 2022 polls, nothing is final for the list of candidates until November 15. But one lawmaker steps forward to propose banning substitutions. These and more when we return.
Regent Mochi, your locally produced glutinous rice cake, comes in mango, green tea, ube, and assorted flavored packs. Regent Mochi Japanese-style glutinous rice cake by Regent.
Suportahi ang imong immune system para mabatukan niini ang mga viruses sama sa corona ug uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs ug antioxidants nga mopakusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa. Herbalaya Food Supplement. Atong saligan aron virus malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala, ang produktong ito ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Severe tropical storm Maring is now out of the country, but winds and rains continue to batter parts of Luzon. Pag-asa retains signal number 2 in Batanes and Babuyan Islands, where strong winds and heavy rainfall remain a threat. It is signal number 1 in more areas, including mainland Cagayan, Ilocos, the western portion of Isabela, Benguet, parts of Bataan, and several areas in extreme northern Luzon. Residents in affected areas are advised to prepare for possible landslides and flash floods. House leader wants to scrap the substitution option for candidates of political parties. Deputy Speaker Rufus Rodriguez says substitution should be prohibited unless a candidate dies or gets disqualified before Election Day. The lawmaker also wants to bring back the rule on aspirants resigning or being deemed automatically resigned from their posts upon the filing of their candidacies. He laments some presidential hopefuls are just proxies, although he did not mention any names. Under the law, the Commission on Elections can only finalize the list of candidates after the November 15 substitution deadline. Rodriguez believes his proposal will put a stop to what he calls the manipulation and mockery of the poll process. At least 2 senators also want the Omnibus Election Code amended to prohibit substitution. They say the provision is being abused. Senate President Tito Soto says the provision should be, quote, removed completely, while Senator Coco Pimentel says substitution should be done for serious contingencies and not to field a, quote, fake candidate as part of a political strategy. Now, earlier presidential aspirant Senator Bato de la Rosa said he's willing to give way to Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte if she decides to run. CMD Secretary General Prospero Pichay denies the party fielded presidential and vice presidential aspirants as placeholders, but he says they're open to making Mayor Duterte their substitute standard bearer. Pichay earlier said their final bets won't be known until November 15. Now, what does substitution really mean, and is it high time that we remove it? We go above and beyond the headlines with former COMELEC Commissioner Louis Guia. Good evening, sir, and welcome to Newsnight. Well, let's begin with this, sir. So we have a law that allows substitution, a provision in that law. But what was that the intent of the law, to allow people to file their candidacies para lang merong pwedeng kung gusto nila, pwedeng may pumalit sa kanila para sila mga placeholder or proxy candidates? Yun po ba yung intent or hindi naman po talaga?
Now, let's look at the law. The law is Section 77 of the Omnibus Election Code. No, the Omnibus Election Code was passed in 1985. So probably the context of the law, or particularly that provision, was the what was happening in 1985. Now, when you look at the law even says that substitution, for whatever reason, including withdrawal, can be done until midday of election day. It's only COMELEC that sort of advanced yung deadline sa November 15, dati December, no? To make sure that the names of all candidates are finalized in time for the printing of the ballot. But you have to remember also when the law was passed, the deadline for filing of certificates of candidacy was the day before the start of the campaign period. So ang daming pagbabago, may konteksto yung ating Omnibus Election Code na ina-apply. At probably politics is something that, it's a practical matter. So politicians will take advantage of the gaps in the law, siguro.
So what can we do about it, Com Louie? What is it na pwedeng gawin? Because, right now, what's happening is that ang dami nagre-react eh. Ang dami nagsasabing, ano yan, placeholder, proxy candidate, seryoso ba yan? Or mapipilitan na lang tumakbo kung hindi siya palitan? Paano po yun?
Let's put it this way, no? Our system requires that candidates must file certificates of candidacy within the period designated by law or by COMELEC. Okay? In this election, hanggang October 8 lang yon. Ngunit, meron ding provision ang ating electoral laws na sinasabi, pag member ka ng political party and the candidates that first submitted their certificates of candidacy as nominees of political parties, pag namatay, na-disqualify o nag-withdraw, ay pwede silang palitan ng nominated ng the same political party. So that's an exception to the rule that the all candidates must be those who have submitted their certificate of candidacy within the period provided by law. So that's an exception, so to speak, available under our legal framework. So probably yun ang ginagamit. But this is what I want to emphasize. A certificate of candidacy is an announcement by the one who filing it that he is presenting himself for consideration by the voters for the position that he is filing his certificate of candidacy for. Ibig sabihin yan, yung bona fide intention or good faith intention to file that certificate is a requirement, which means that you have to pursue your candidacy up to election. That should have been your intention when you filed at the time that you filed it. But when you say that you are filing it and you don't really have intention to run, then you are, I think, my position is that you are in danger of having your certificate of candidacy canceled as a candidacy filed by a nuisance candidate. Because Section 69 of the Omnibus Election Code is very clear. A certificate of candidacy that was filed without any bona fide intention to run is a nuisance candidacy and therefore should be canceled or denied due course. A certificate of candidacy that is canceled or denied due course means that the one who filed the certificate of candidacy has never been a candidate. Hindi siya pwedeng ma-substitute kung hindi siya kandidato.
Well, two things there, Com Louie. We can't legislate intention or good faith, hindi po ba? So, it really depends on the person who's filing the COC. He's presenting himself or herself in good faith and allowing the voters na, tingnan siya na posibleng kandidato, pero meron palang posibilidad na hindi siya matutuloy. When you say, so can you comment on that? And also, when you say na they run the risk of getting disqualified by the COMELEC. Let's take the case of Senator Bato de la Rosa, because he said that if Sara Duterte, well, of course, first she has to take an oath, no, na miyembro siya ng PDP Laban, maging miyembro siya ng political party ng partido political na yon. And then kung ang sinasabi ni Bato kung gusto ni Sara na tumakbong presidente for PDP Laban, he will give way. So, paano po yun? How is the COMELEC going to handle this case?
Well, yung petition, yung declaration as a nuisance candidate, dapat may proceedings yan. So, kung merong bona fide intention or what, or none, yun ay factual issue na dapat nililiti sa COMELEC. So, there has to be a proceedings before COMELEC that would consider, that might, consider an allegation that this candidate, yung nag-file ng certificate of candidacy, walang bona fide intention or ang purpose niya lang gawing mockery yung electoral process, no? So, ganun siguro yung kailangan ipakita yan in a proceeding, and then COMELEC will then have to consider the factual, the proof that are presented by maybe the petitioner, giving a chance to the one who filed the certificate of candidate to respond para masabi kung talagang meron siyang intention.
Yeah.
Kaya medyo delikado yung minsan sinabi mong wala talaga akong kwan kasi gusto ko lang mag-play. Pag sinabi mo yung diretso, then there might, di ba pruweba yun? Na hindi mo talaga gusto maging presidente.
The other issue here po, oo nga. Well, the other issue here po is that usually yung sinasabing nuisance candidates or mga peking kandidato, mga independent, walang political party, and then yung makikita mo naman, di ba? Sometimes we have a parade of people who present themselves as candidates. But in this case, Bato de la Rosa filed his certificate of candidacy for president as a member of PDP Laban, which is a legit, for lack of a better word, legit political party. So, paano po yun?
Well, kaya nga sinasabi ko, kaya theoretical yung sinasabi ko, no? Pag wala kang pinakitang totoong intention na gawing tuloy-tuloy yung iyong patakbo mo hanggang sa araw ng eleksyon, ay hindi ka bona fide candidate, no? kahit ikaw ay magaling, kahit matino ang pag-iisip mo, ang importante doon, yung intention mo na i-pursue yung iyong candidacy up to the end. That is what kasi yun yung ritual, yun yung importante, yun yung solemnity ng filing of certificate of candidacy. It's not just an empty ritual. Sinasabi mo sa taong bayan that I am running. You should mean it that you are actually running. So, of course, mayroong presumption that when you file it, you mean na talagang gusto mong manalo at gusto mong tumakbo. Pero kung merong mga ebidensya na nagpapakita na wala yung intention na yon, walang good faith intention, then probably there might be a case for you to be declared a nuisance candidate.
In other words, bakit kayo magfa-file kung hindi pala kayo tatakbo? Former Comelec Commissioner Luigi, I'm sorry sir, we ran out of time, but yes.
Ang sinabi ko, hindi ka pwedeng mag-file ng certificate of candidacy kung wala kang intention ituloy-tuloy yung iyong pangangandidato hanggang sa halalan. That's the basic import. That's the basic import of filing a certificate of candidacy.
Former Comelec Commissioner Luigi, sir, thank you very much for your time tonight. The waiting game is not yet over, at least until November 15th. As early as now, what are we expecting from the 2022 hopefuls? This and more tonight at 8:30. Join me on Politics as Usual, only here on CNN Philippines. The Ombudsman junks the graft complaint against former Tourism Secretary Wanda Teo, her brother Ben Tulfo, and 4 others over the controversial 60 million peso ad deal with state-run People's Television. The reason, lack of probable cause. Ombudsman Samuel Martirez says conspiracy cannot be established because Teo was, quote, not in any way privy to the contract between PTV and Bitag Media. Bitag is owned by Teo's brother Ben. In 2018, state auditors flagged the multi-million peso deal for the lack of supporting documents and conflict of interest. The former DOT chief resigned from her post amid the controversy. When we return, makers of the new Superman take a new direction to reflect the experiences of many comic fans. And K-pop fans bound to feel special today as another group makes it to the Billboard Hot 100. Details after a short break.
Sa'yo, ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na, masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa. Suportahi ang imong immune system para mabatukan niini ang mga viruses sama sa corona ug uban pa. Pag Herbalaya Food Supplement every day. Aduna kini mga natural herbs ug antioxidants nga mopakusog sa imong immune system. Batukan ang mga viruses. Mag Herbalaya Food Supplement matag adlaw. Inyong mapalit sa inyong mga suking butika bisan asa. Herbalaya Food Supplement. Atong saligan aron virus malikayan.
Mahalagang paalala.
Welcome back. One giant conglomerate hoping to revive a historical and crucial waterway. San Miguel Corporation claims progress in its Pasig River rehabilitation project with the waste collection from the main waterway reaching thousands of tons. Chrissy Di Matulak brings us up to speed.
During the wet season, flooding is just one of the many concerns of residents in Metro Manila. Traffic gets affected, and it becomes even more challenging for commuters who have to brave the busy roads. This problem can hopefully be solved soon after San Miguel Corporation successfully removed 54,000 metric tons of silt and solid waste from the Pasig River in just 3 months. Engineer Ben Ante, project engineer of the Pasig River cleanup, explains how removing trash can help with the flooding situation.
By increasing the hydraulic capacity of the river by widening and deepening it, it will allow floodwaters to flow freely, hence avoid overflowing.
The project is part of the much larger goal to clean up all major waterways in the National Capital Region and nearby provinces to allow water to freely flow into Manila Bay.
This 2 million pesos initiative will aim to extract 3 million cubic meters of dredged material at 50,000 cubic meter per month in 5 years. Besides the Pandacan and Malacanang area, our next priorities are shallow and constricted waterways like C5 and Marikina Junction, wherein water disgorges from the Marikina River.
Ante takes us through the process of segregating the waste material. After the dredged material is unloaded in a temporary stockpile, the solid garbage is then separated and dumped in a Department of Environment and Natural Resources approved sanitary landfill in Bulacan. The remaining soil undergoes laboratory tests to determine if it is safe to use for landfills in commercial, residential, and industrial development. So far, Ante says the remaining waste they've collected is safe to use for land development. Chrissy de Matulak, CNN Philippines.
In entertainment, Superman is set to come out as bisexual in an upcoming comic series. DC Comics confirms that in the 5th issue of Superman, Son of Kal-El, lead character John Kent, Clark and Lane's son, falls for Jay Nakamura, a male reporter. Series writer Tom Taylor says this is so more people can see themselves in the most powerful superhero in comics. The Billboard Hot 100 continues to ride the Korean wave, welcoming another artist on the chart. This time it's twice. Following the likes of BTS, Blackpink, and Wonder Girls, they are only the 4th Korean music group to ever make it to the list. Their first English single, The Feels, placed 83rd this week. Fans celebrated the achievement with hashtag twice Hot 100 debut, taking to the top of Twitter trends earlier today. We get an update on a Star Trek Legends real-life space mission and a matinee idol taking on an iconic character. Here's CNN's David Daniel with the Hollywood Minute.
Here's your first look at Timothy Chalamet as Wonka. The actor posted the pic on social media. The Charlie and the Chocolate Factory prequel is now shooting in London.
Are you under control? Are you? No.
Jessica Chastain leads an all-star cast in The 355, about 4 female operatives who band together to stop a mercenary from using a top-secret weapon. This is the first trailer for the globe-trotting adventure, which also stars Dion Kruger and Oscar winners Lupita Nyong'o and Penelope Cruz. The 355 hits theaters January 7th.
And Mr. Shatner, looking this way, please.
It'll be a bit longer than expected before William Shatner boldly goes where no nonagenarian has gone before. Windy weather forecast for Tuesday has prompted Blue Origin to bump the Star Trek Legends suborbital flight until Wednesday. Captain Kirk has waited 90 years to really go into space. He can wait one more day. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
We still have 74 days to go before Christmas, and that is it for tonight. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond.